Okay, let's see. I'm just checking my audio. I made some adjustments to the microphone. Let's see. I'm using my mobile phone here. Hello. Waiting for Christian Alfoni. How much latency is it on the... There we go. Okay, this is good. Yeah. Yeah. Hi. It's been a while. I had 3 weeks vacation, and yeah, it's interesting having vacation as a family with a 1.5-year-old and 5.5-year-old. It's freaking intense. It's just insane. We have like, I think there's like 5 moments of bliss, vacation bliss, where you're kind of relaxing and just enjoying the taking in the environment. It's just intense. But yeah, that's the thing. It's an investment doing this stuff. And the funny thing is, like, now the kids are like getting their own thing. The youngest is getting older, and they're at the point of connecting, which is really nice. Anyways, so I didn't get much coding done. I had some ambitions, but I couldn't get it done. But I have done something. So I worked on React states, and at CodeSandbox we're also working on. We have like identified all our learnings for the code base for the project editor, and let's see. I can make this bigger. For the project editor, and we're in the process of like cleaning up what we don't want to do, and we're getting really close, and part of that is refactoring some of our features to using the latest React states, which is now an internal package. So we'll publish that as like CodeSandbox states when we're done. Yeah, so I thought I could just talk about the latest changes there, and we're going to actually do some work. We're going to refactor a couple of features and make a couple of PRs. And I'm actually using the standalone. This isn't official yet, but this is the standalone CodeSandbox Projects editor, which is really nice because it works like a native app. So you don't have conflicting browser shortcuts and stuff. And you have like tabs for your different open branches on the different projects, which is also nice. And what did I want to do? Yeah, we're like in open beta now, which is exciting. I don't feel any difference in my everyday work. But what's good is that we are taking the month of August to kind of calm down a little bit, because we were pushing for the open beta to clean up the final things, and then we're pushing hard again from September. And I'm super excited about what's coming down the road, especially related to sandboxes and how everything is going to work together. That's going to be fun. Anyways, so in terms of the API of React states or CodeSandbox states, is that now there's only I can't remember. There's been so many iterations, like crazy amount of iterations. But one of the values has been like it's just a reducer. So the only thing you really do here is that you have this transition, you type your state with explicit states, you have your actions, and then you define your reducer, where we call it prev state, because you could call it current state if you want to do that. And then you have the action, where you just call the transition with that previous state and the action, and then you define the transitions. What's really great now, which was a revelation, is that I figured out how to fix the return type here. Because previously you would have to do explicit return type. So you would have to insert the state type as a return type. or you would get an error on this will be evaluated to a string. That was the problem. And it wouldn't match a valid return type. But now that's working. What's bad, it's not really bad, but when you don't have that explicit return type, you can get into a situation where, for example, here we have state loading, and there's no other properties related to that state, but you're totally free to add new properties here, and it won't give you an error because it does match the loading state still. And that's the thing about TypeScript, which has been bugging me like crazy, is that when you extend a type, you can't say extend the exact type. It just needs the minimum to be compatible, which is really, really sad. So, for example, if you have a function where you want a user type, and you say, maybe we should actually write some code for that. How should we do this? Yeah, whatever. So if you have a function called where you have a user, yeah, let's say user. You have a type user, username string, something like that. And then you want to say that this function only takes a user. You can't, like if you do it like this, then, and I say username foo, and I do mip-moop, that gives an error. Now it's an exact type. But if I do t extends user, now it's valid to do that. There's no way to say it needs to extend the exact type. And there are actually ways to get around this. You can do some trickery to make this work. But what you can't make work is if I say that this needs to return a user. For example, a callback. And that callback should return a user. If I give it a callback now, and I say username foo, and I can say mip-moop, then that's perfectly okay. There's no way for me to actually make that return value to be exact. The only way to make that exact is to actually put user in here. And that's so bad. Like you won't type inference. So for example, here it's not that bad, but if it's a state, like it's a union, it can be multiple types. Then you have to like pick the exact type. Like pick, in the case of states, you have to say pick state loading, for example, and then say state loading. Because if you were to just say state here, then you lose inference. Then it doesn't understand what does this function actually return. It returns any state. So you lose inference, which is really bad. So this is really annoying with TypeScript. But I've settled now that we want inference. We prefer inference and the least amount of explicit typing. So the cost is that, yes, you can get into a situation where you have properties that isn't valid for the state, or it's not invalid, but it's not necessary for the state to be valid. Or you can even like here, yeah, sorry, this is the old API, but you can also like add some state here that's like completely invalid, or not invalid, but isn't part of the state object, and it doesn't yell at you. But what we get back is that you don't have to do explicit typing, and we get inference, meaning that it's possible to infer every possible transition in this object. And I'll show it to you. But okay, enough talk. No, wait, I want to show something else. So that's the transition, and then we have So that's the thing, like this is what I really wanted it to be. It should just be this transition function, and it is now. And then I have these utilities with match. You have match prop, and then you have use state transition. I really wanted one hook, and I figured out how to do that now. So when you pass it a string, it means when you enter this state, run this effect, and it can be run if you enter either of these states, and then the disposer runs when you move out of that state. So if you enter foo state multiple times, it only runs the first time, and then the disposer only runs when you move out of the foo state. But then you have this other version, which is an object, and this object actually reflects the object in the reducer. So you can imagine here that we have a reducer which has like a foo state and a bar state, and the foo switches to bar and the bar switches to foo in the reducer. And it's actually able to infer those exact transitions. So what we do here is that we say when we're in foo and we get the switch action, and that switch action leads us to bar. And this is typed, and you get an error if you type anything wrong here. Then this effect will run, which is insanely powerful. And then there's also this version where you just give a callback, and then you can do, like, I've never been in a situation where I've had to do this, but it's possible to just generally handle it. And then you have just the two utility types, pick state and pick action, and then the dev tools. So this is really what I want the API to be. This is perfect within the goal of the library and the values and everything. And then what I've done is that I've introduced a couple of state machines, one called usePromise. And usePromise just takes a callback that produces a promise. And usePromise runs immediately. So when the component mounts, it calls this callback immediately. And then it runs the promise. Just 2 seconds. God damn it. I have this cough and I have some mints that helps. But it's so fucking annoying. Like in the bedroom, I have my headset because I watch an episode of X-Files every night I go to bed. For some reason, I'm on like season 5 or something. And then I have my mints because I have this summer cold. And that headset is always gone. My partner grabs it almost every day. And it annoys the hell out of me. And now she's taking my fucking mints as well. Anyways. I'll find them. Anyways, so what's interesting about this is that you can just call any promise or any function returning a promise. And then you get this pending, resolved, and rejected state. And this is, of course, using a plain reducer inside, but it's typed to the value returned by the promise, and so on. But what's really cool is that you can actually now use the state transition hook to do stuff in the different states. And you can even do the explicit transition, like the object, where you can say stuff like, okay, if I was resolved, I called execute and it was rejected, then do this. Or if it was resolved, I called execute and then it got resolved again, do this thing. So it's super powerful. And then there's just a lazy version of that, which also has an idle state that doesn't run immediately. So this is pretty cool. Yes. Okay, let's actually get some work done. So this is our project feature. So the thing about our features is that we don't want our features to be a single reducer anymore. Because what happened is that we started applying functionality unrelated to each other. So we started adding states for one part of the feature that had nothing to do with the other part of the feature. So what we're doing is that our features is just a collection of hooks. So it has like a feature has a provider which exposes a set of hooks. Like some hooks doesn't need to be exposed through the provider, meaning that they don't need to be shared between any consuming component, but they're still exposed through that feature. Anyways, sorry. So what we're doing here, we're getting rid of this old API. So we're going to say transition, and hopefully as I do this, we'll get into some talking points. I have no idea. I just wanted to do a stream. And what's interesting about this one is that we're actually using a factory here. My partner is back in. I'm going to ask her for the mints. Ragna? Hvor du la de dokkpastillene mine? Hvor la du de dokkpastillene mine?
Oskar snudd posen på hodet. Men de er redda, ligger oppi hylla, liksom på motsatt side der. På soverommet. På soverommet vårt, i den hylla under sengeteppene der.
Right. It was actually my youngest who found them, turned them upside down, and spilled mints all over the floor. Oh my god. Anyways, so this factory, what is it used for? Force reducer. Yeah, so this has to do with how we produce the state. Yeah. So this needs to be yeah, it's interesting. This is so bad. It's almost, I think, one of our founders, Evis, he has a tendency to do this. Like do a negative check instead of just doing this. It's not like you're not a bad programmer doing that. It's just a funny habit. I have, like, it's a bad habit. I have bad habits as well, coding, but I don't have this one. Let's see. I'm just evaluating if we need to actually have this factory. Yeah. Yeah, so either we could have a factory or we could actually initialize the reducer with that field. But I think this is better, what we're doing here. So instead of creating, like, this is really old API. By the way, I'm just checking something. Yeah. Oh, sorry, yeah, hi Sigurd. I didn't have my comments open here. Yeah, maybe I should do this. I've changed my setup here. I changed my screens and stuff, and I actually ordered a new camera stand. So I'm going to have my camera like on top of the screen, which will be nice. We don't like have the microphone like in my face. It's kind of below my face. Anyways. Maybe makes it so the fallback. Yeah, that's a good argument. But yeah, my point is he always does a negate. He has this general tendency in his code that you even have when he defines a variable, he doesn't say is valid. He writes is not valid. That's what I mean. But yeah, that was a good argument here. Like you want the default to be the else case. Yeah, I can see that argument. And by the way, we are not supposed to, in this refactor, we're actually not supposed to change any logic. We're just going to change the API, so we should just keep it as is. But anyways, yeah, so it's really funny. So when you then do is not valid and then you negate it, it's like is not is not valid. Like it's so mind-bending sometimes reading. I made fun of him a couple of times. Like he doesn't do it often, but enough to make it for me noticing and making fun of him. So this is the old concept. It was called transient states, and this is actually the reason this was implemented is because that's the official way to deal with side effects. When you don't really change your state, you want to stay in the same state, but you want to trigger some side effect unrelated to that state. So what you do is that you move into a transient state, which immediately moves you back to the current state or some other state for that matter. And that transient state can have side effects related to it. But it turned out to not be a good way to deal with this. It's much better to have that use state transition hook, so that in this concept, the reducer doesn't know anything about side effects at all. It only cares about the defined states and how you can transition between them based on the actions. That's the only thing it cares about. Yes. So let's continue. We don't need a transient state. We can remove it. Yeah, I think we can just remove it and figure out how to do this. God damn it, Oscar is coughing. If he has a short nap, like our oldest she's not there often, but now she's at her grandparents, and she didn't want to sleep over, but maybe we're crossing our fingers that she'll sleep over. But that's like typical, and then she finally leaves. And then we have the youngest, and then he gets sick or something. That would just be perfect. Anyways, so in the old version of React States, I actually gave the action first and then the state, which is so weird because I wanted it to be close to a reducer, and the reducer is state and action. So all we have to do here is oh yeah, React 18. Yeah, so I've been reflecting, because you're pointing to, are you pointing to the fact that it's like running effects twice in development mode? Because ideally I would want this to be subscription based, which is why I wrote the Timsy thing, or explore the Timsy library, so that there is no React stuff in there. It's just a state store that's based on subscriptions, and then you use the proper use external state store. Is that the hook that is created to bring state out of an external state store using a subscription? Yeah, so The thing is, I have to. I'm trying to think back of something I did. That was actually with Timsy. Yeah, that was some disposing stuff. But the thing is, I'm trying to think of an example. I'm trying to think of an example. So if you're, I think the reason it works is because you have the state. So even if it runs the, yeah, it doesn't matter. Like it's just if you have any use effect that runs some side effect, then it's the same here. So if you have like use state transition, like the only time this is affected by React rerunning use effect twice, because it's the initial mount of the component, it will only run the use state transition hooks that is related to the initial state. And that is typically like asking for fetching some data. So that will actually happen twice. Yeah, and we're actually going into the latest API here. Yeah, it's the same. And it, like in CodeSandbox Projects, we have a really old version of React states, which is even before we started talking about it and I started streaming, I think. But yeah, for the transition, the arguments are, I would say they were reversed. Now they are correct. So let's just do that. But yeah, in related to React 18, the only, as I said, the only place where you get into that double use effect trigger is when you have a use state transition that points to the initial state and you want to do something like the initial state is loading, and on the loading state you want to fetch some data. So what happens is it does fetch the data twice, but the good thing is that when you receive that first piece of data, you transition the state into loaded. So when that second call for the data comes, it's ignored. So that's an improvement over what you would have without explicit states. Whereas if you just put that data on like a set state, you would actually see the UI possibly like double render or something. But yeah, I haven't really thought about it because we haven't had any issues with it. And I'm very confident we're running. Are we running React 18? Are we? No, we're running 17. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not worried about it. At least. Maybe I should be. Let's see. Like that. So what we're basically doing with this refactor is that we're getting rid of the transient states. That's what the refactor is called. Like, get rid of transient states. So what we have here now is the states that are erroring now is, let's put error at the end, by the way. Do we have error state? Yeah. So what we're doing now, we're just identifying the transient states, the transitions using transient states, and we're going to write them out as a normal transition. So we have ready, switch branch, switching branch, and that's actually what was it? Ready. Let's see. So switching branch is actually ready, switch branch, ready, because you see here it points to ready here. And then we have branch rename, because we only have one of them. Yeah. And then we have set branch, which is also on ready. So this is a ready, sorry. So ready was a set branch, and then that also moves to ready. And then we have a renaming branch, and that's a yeah. So branch rename error is renaming branch and branch rename error, and it moves to yeah, it actually moves to ready. So it's really interesting that not all of our errors gives explicit error states. Like we don't want the UI to move into an error state. It just moves back to its like ready state or its initial state. But we rather identify the transition and we give like a notification. So we do have a side effect related to getting the error, but it doesn't mean like the whole app moves into an error state. Okay, cool. So what we're going to do now, we're going to look through here and we're going to just clean up. So switch branch wants to move to ready. We're not going to do that. We're just going to say ready. And what does ready need? It needs the project. So we're going to say project. Yeah, so what we can do here, we can just say state. Since it's the exact same state we're moving back into, we can just spread like this, because that indicates that we want to keep ourselves on the ready state. And branch renamed upstream is also back to ready, but it does some changes. So we are going to say state ready. Oops. Like that, and then we're just going to clean up like that. This is handling of other user rename while you are connecting to the same branch. Yeah, that's interesting. We're collaborative by default. You have to handle some interesting cases. Yeah, I haven't tried React 18 on like a bigger app. I did try it on, I have tried it though, and I identified what we were talking about, like running the effects twice. It's so interesting. This is like the second thing noticeable that the React team gets away with. And I'm not saying they're doing like bad work or anything, or saying they're like dumb or anything like that. It's just that even first it was hooks in itself. Like even though hooks are really powerful, it's such a mind-bending concept. Not when you read it, but so it's very readable. But when you dive behind the code and think about how it actually executes, that you have a function, a global function, like use state. And when you use that within the scope of a component and it runs multiple times, it runs differently the first time from the next times. You have the dependency array, like it's, and I feel like this React 18 testing effects is also just, it just creates like a bad development experience. Well, bad is maybe too harsh, but like you're surprised by it. You don't expect it. Yeah, so we don't want to do unnecessary spreading. So cool. And then we can fix this one as well. So here we actually want to stay in renaming branch. I think. Why is it complaining? Oh, it wants a new name. Okay, I guess we have... Wait, set branch name? Wait a minute. Wait. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. So this was actually... Wait a minute. Set branch name. Renaming branch. Why do we have this new name? Just give me 2 seconds. I have to blow my nose. Oh, yeah. I think... Oh, 2 seconds. Okay, so I think when we move into renaming branch, that's when we give it a new name. Oh, we should fix this one as well. And then the project, it needs the project, and we can get the project from here. So this is also one of the rules we kind of have. What's happening here? It's something stealing my focus. Is that we only do... What the fuck is happening? Something is constantly grabbing my focus. Is it here? Okay, I'll stop the... It's kind of annoying that when you have a running dev server in the browser, the iframe grabs your focus all the time. We have to do something about that. Let's see. Yeah, so we don't actually... you should only spread when you do this. When you move into the exact same state without any changes, you do the spreading. But if you manipulate, even though you move to the same state and you manipulate one of the properties, you should explicitly define what state you're moving to and all the properties. And the reason is that when you spread and change properties, like I can do anything here and I can misspell the... So if I wanted to update the project, I would do do this, and then I wouldn't have gotten an error. And this is again the cost of not having explicit typing. You want inference, but I'm comfortable with that now. It's worth the awesomeness of inference and not having to be so explicit about typing. And hopefully TypeScript will at some point enable us to have exact return types. That would be amazeballs. Anyways, what were we doing? Yeah, so here we should say state renaming branch, and we have new name. Yeah, so oh, we even have project here. Cool. So I think this name is actually... So what happens is that we move into a renaming branch state with the new name. And what happens is that we have some complex renaming because we want to update it in our API and we want to update it on the actual running environment. And this is currently orchestrated by the client, which is a bad thing. But that means it has 2 steps. That's the thing. Let's see, and here we move to ready with project. yeah, so we should change that at some point. Branch renaming branch rename should move to ready. And there we get the project. We say, yeah, so this doesn't get the error anymore. And now we're just about to step into how we actually, well, how do we then deal with the error? Like, what the hell is happening there? So I'm going to show you that shortly. Cool. Okay, so what we've done here now is, ever since we had component daemon, people want to do something on first line only then hooks came and the default way to use is an infinite re-render, and now in it we double render. Yeah, exactly. You have an infinite double render. Yeah, it's kind of insane when you look at, for example, I looked at Solid.js. If you haven't looked at Solid.js, you should take a look, Sigurd. It's from a glance, it's so much better than React. Just a mental model of like every component function executes once. It's based on reactivity, which means that you have granular updates in the DOM instead of all this reconciliation logic happening under the hood. You have like proper on mount, on dispose, and stuff like that. But as you dive deeper into Solid, I fear that just like we saw with React states, like I had this core idea, it should just be a reducer, and as pointed out with the API of the current React states, it is just this transition function. That is all of React states. And then you have a couple of utilities, like the match and match prop for consumption, and then you have the use transition hook. That's all it is. And I have the feeling that Solid has this really good core idea, but then it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And maybe does some things it shouldn't do. Anyways, I don't know enough about the project. Yeah, MobX has the same reactivity model. I started reflecting on, like, I even started writing some code, like, without using any framework, like how would you like do rendering? I started thinking back on Backbone, for example. Well, what if like a function just takes a node, an actual DOM node, and then you change the inner HTML of that DOM node? That's what the function is about. It gets the node and it knows how to produce its HTML, and that's like all it does. But then you have things like, what about event listeners? How do you handle a click? So you can do that. Like the function gets the node. You can add event listeners to that node. But then you get into how do you identify which element was actually clicked? And what if you actually want to update the HTML of that node? You call a function again, and now you have multiple event listeners on that node. So you need to do disposing, and like it gets like there has to be like some fundamental idea around to dynamically update the DOM. But it gets complicated very, very fast, and it fascinates me. Also, I saw the presentation from the previous Angular, the head of the Angular project, Mishko Havery or something. It's called Quick, which is super interesting. The way that works, it has a very different approach, and it's more like website driven or built for websites. But it's really, really cool what they're doing. Yeah, I've been in this space quite a bit. Especially Overmind and MobX is basically the same thing. It's just that MobX has a more fundamental building block for observability, while Overmind has a full state tree as the building block for observability. What did we do in Cerebral? We were a bit all over the place. You could change out the store. You could have like an immutable store. And you can even have mobx state tree as a state store in Cerebral. Anyways, so now we have a nice refactor. This thing only cares about state. So what's interesting, like, yeah, so for example, renaming branch, when we get a set branch name, that I think is from when we get a response from the API. We're still renaming the branch, and then we'll get an event from our environment that it actually changed the branch name on the running Git thing, and then it moved back to ready. And if we get an error, we actually move back to ready instead of error. Do we ever move to error? Yeah. So if we're not able to fetch a project at all, then we move to error. But if the branch rename fails, yeah. So here we should really, that's why I don't want the client to do the orchestration, because now you might have renamed it in the API, but you haven't renamed it in the environment. And then how do you clean that up from the client's perspective? So the way this should work is that we only ask the API to do the rename. It does its rename, talks to the environment, does the rename there. If it fails there, it will revert in the API and then finally give an error to the client. So it's like one request for the client. But yeah, this typically works. So, but it's a little bit fragile. Okay, so let's do the fun stuff. Let's move over to the actual feature code. And what we're going to do here, we're not going to create this context, create this hook. We are only going to use state transition from, there we go. And then we're actually going to const provider create hooks provider. So this is actually something I've also published now. It's something called a hooks provider. And the reason we use this is because when we move on from this point, our features will have multiple hooks, and some of those hooks needs to be shared. So you don't have to think about creating context providers for them. You just have one context provider for every feature that you mount into the app. So you mount the feature, and then you might have one or multiple hooks that is considered like shared, and they're all exposed through that single provider, but they're optimized. So internally, they each have their own provider and stuff like that. And this is also what I don't like about React. It's how you have to use these context providers for optimization reasons. And you typically end up with a very nested provider thing. It's a little bit annoying. It's because the base value has to be an object so you can make it proxied. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like having like native feel to observability in JavaScript. You have to use proxies, and as you say, proxies needs to be objects, which is nice with Overmind because it's like you have the state tree there, so you never have to think about this because you always go from the point of the state tree, so you kind of hide that bad thing. But yeah. Yeah, you can definitely question. That's a good way to put it. Like, how can you defend that? That's what I mean about React hooks and the double render. Like, how are you able to defend that like mental discrepancy. I don't know what the word is, but there's something. It just isn't what you expect. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, is there a way to express reactivity in JavaScript without just using JavaScript, like expected JavaScript? Anyways, so what we have here, we have use project. Oh, yeah, this one's interesting. Yeah, this is something we tried previously. I don't think we should do this. Yeah. I remember now. I remember now. Yeah, hard code. Mental gymnast. Yeah, that's a good term as well. Mental gymnastics. So we had some, like, the one thing about having these explicit states is that some parts of the code only cares about the state, only cares about the single state. So for example, a reducer handling a session, for example, most of your app is only interested in the session when it's authenticated. So how do you expose that? Like, you don't want a hook expose the whole session state. A hook that's called like use session. You should really have use authenticated session. But what do you do then if you're not in the authenticated state and you still happen to use that hook? Should you throw an error? Or in this case, we had a discussion, and one of our engineers had experience returning a mocked object or a mocked state. But I don't, I don't like that, because you don't, and the argument was good, like, because you don't want to break the user experience. So if you just mock it, at least you won't like break the whole app. Yeah. Well, maybe you should rather have like an error boundary or something inside your provider. I don't know. But we haven't really followed that pattern, so I'm going to remove it from here. And we're going to look at how we're actually going to use project. So, so what we're going to do, here, where did I put that stuff? Okay, let's move some stuff here. Yeah, it doesn't feel right to me either. I'm just moving that down there. We have a consumer. Okay, so we have provider props. So now we don't have a provider. We rather say use feature. And we register the hook. Which means that it will get its own provider, or it has its own provider here. And then we'll just return the feature, which is basically the reducer. And then we export the provider. And then we're also going to export a consumer, create hooks consumer. Which is use feature. Again, it's just a way for us to avoid having to manually write a context and a provider every time we want to share a hook between components. I'm not sure about the API. It's not obvious what's happening. So probably the API needs to change a bit, but that's the idea, at least. The idea of just creating a hook and just saying, oh, by the way, I want whoever consumes this hook shares that hook with everyone else who's consuming it. That's like the concept that you want. And the closest we got was like, okay, just define the hook as normal, but you wrap it inside this register hook, or this register hook wraps wraps the implementation so that when you consume this, you actually consume it through this provider, which means that everyone consumes it through that provider, and that provider is actually the thing executing the hook. It's not the component, so you have like multiple instances. Yeah, so that's also every feature exposes. Yeah, so we have the index file for renaming. I'm not. We're probably going to change that as well, because now a feature isn't like the hook isn't a feature. The feature for us moving forward, a feature is just a namespace for certain hooks. That's basically it. And the only framework we have is actually the hooks provider. So we don't dictate how these hooks are going to be implemented. We just dictate how they are exposed to the app. So they are exposed through folders, which is called features. That is a namespace for certain hooks, so that you can import all the hooks from a certain feature. And then you just use this hooks provider to determine if this hook should be shared or not between components. So we could have dropped the register hook here and done exactly the same. But then every component using this feature would get its own instance of the feature, which is not what we want for this project. It's really interesting. Yeah, anyways. So use feature. Okay, so let's look at types default. What was all of this used for? Yeah, let's look at that later. Okay, so we don't really have to do much change here. Ideally, we should only tend to create new branches if the user has the permission to write to the repo. Oh yeah, create branch if not exists. Yeah. Yeah, I do wonder if we're actually doing this now. So the thing is, like, we do allow you to open like any branch on any project, and you can give it this query flag, create, which means that if the branch doesn't exist, we just create it and you open the editor, which is pretty cool. It's actually what enables us to, so for example, in linear now, in our linear, every single issue gets a link attached to it with the issue number. And when you click it, you go to the project editor and it actually creates a branch. And that's tied back to linear. So now that issue tracks that branch, like on GitHub, when you create a PR and merge it and stuff. It's insanely awesome. And this is what's driving that. And I do think when we, yeah, I have to verify that. Again, ready, no biggie there. Yeah, so now we start getting errors on the things that was transient state. So let's just insert all this. And then we'll go back to the reducer. Oh, did I remove? So let's look at this. Branch rename error. So this should actually be, yeah, so this is also a thing. I have no idea why this happens. It's something with our, you see this? The feature is any, but when I look at use reducer, it's actually, everything's typed correctly. But it just returns any. And I don't know why it acts this way. And I think if I like remove it and add it, there's something weird with that language server. Anyways, doesn't matter. I won't get IntelliSense, and that's even weirder. Like I don't get IntelliSense. Where were we? But it actually shouts at me if I do something wrong. So if I do like foo here, then it actually states that it's not a valid state. And foo does not exist in the type. But if I now say, what was it? Branch rename error? Renaming branch. That's okay. So the IntelliSense or the language server actually understands the typing, but for some reason the IntelliSense doesn't. Yeah, I have no idea. Okay, so branch rename error, and when that leads to ready. Now the thing is, you can really see it now because of this weird IntelliSense issue. But these transitions are inferred from the reducer. So you can only define actual valid transitions there, and it reflects the structure of the reducer. So we do have a renaming branch state. It does handle this action, and the only state it moves to is ready. And here we get the new state, which is where we get the new state of the project. And then we have the action, which holds the error, and now we can do the same thing. So now you saw how we had some responsibility previously inside the reducer to figure out what should happen when we what should happen when we get this branch rename error. But now it doesn't care. It just states that whenever we have a branch rename error, we should move back to the ready state, and it's up to the outside to determine what kind of side effect to produce out of that. And we'll have the same thing. Yes, we can remove this. And this was branch renamed upstream, which should now be called ready set branch ready. And then there seems to be something. Let's see. It should be project. There's something wrong here. It does not exist on ready. Wasn't it ready? Oh. Shit. Which one of them was it? God damn it. Was it? Do we see it here? Branch renamed. God damn it. Let me just check quickly. Oh, come on. I'm just checking on my other screen here. I can't remember. Oh, the router. Yeah, so this is just this is nothing related to React states. It's just because we're using Next.js, and we are basically what we do is that we have our own abstraction around the Next.js router. For one, it's fucking horrible. We have so much logic to prevent unnecessary reconciliation on the router. Like it's perfect for normal applications, but we made a mistake there. That's one of our learnings. We shouldn't have chosen Next.js. It doesn't fit the project editor because we do a lot of query updates. So basically what this does, it just calls our abstraction around the Next.js router, where it does what it's supposed to do with the URL to prevent reconciliation and stuff like that. And also we have this transition effect. So when you move between branches, we kind of fade, like zoom out and then zoom back in, and that should only happen during that should only happen when you actually branch. But in this case, we're just changing the name of the branch, which is basically the same thing. We're updating the URL to a different branch, but in this case, we don't want that zoom effect to happen. So it also takes care of that stuff. Yes, exactly. So we're updating the query, which typically reconciles. So you can imagine, like, every time you type code, we actually update the query with your position in the code. Imagine that reconciling, and it reconciles from the freaking top. That's the point. Like, the whole freaking app just, it's crazy. But I know they're working on improving their router, so that's good. But yeah, what the hell was this? Let's see, source, features, project, reducer. So it was the branch renamed upstream. Yes, this was in the ready state. Branch, yeah, so it's set branch name. But again, you saw it actually gave an error on this. So that's good. So ready. What the hell? New name. This is weird. Why are we not getting any? Oh, any. Why are we? So, oh, so these are actually not give. Oh, these are actually giving any. Even, oh, god damn it. It's because the feature is any. We have to make that typing work. I have no idea why it happens. I just know that suddenly it starts working. It's so weird. What happens if I destructure the thing? Yeah, you see that? Like, it's insane. What the hell is wrong with this language server? But here, it's any again. Is it this use reducer DevTools as... Oh! That's interesting. So use reducer DevTools makes the... Oh! I know what's happening. Yeah, because here we are actually stating that this is any, I think. Like, this should be... This should extend. Oh, use reduce. Okay, extends. Yeah. I didn't write this. No, I write a lot of bad code. But yeah, this. Oh, okay. So it's actually our code. I thought it was our language server. Yeah, so I guess we can actually use iState from CodeSandbox States here. And then dispatch iAction from CodeSandbox States. And then, yeah, React. There we go. By the way, I'm excited about something I want to do on the stream. I'm going to I've been looking into, like, basic programming paradigms, like what does it mean to write object-oriented code and procedural code and functional code. And I had this revelation, I guess. I never really thought about what type of code I'm writing. But it's interesting in our code base, because React is, in some sense it's functional, in the sense that it's like immutable, but it mixes paradigms. That's my point. But then you have like object-oriented, which has this history of actually being a concept that's been taken too far. So you have like classes and inheritance and all that stuff, but what does it actually mean to write object-oriented code? And then you have procedural code, which I have never, I heard the term, but I never thought about what it means. And we have some object-oriented code in our code base that I want to refactor to procedural code. And I started doing that, and it's really fascinating to see what happens with the code. So we are going to do that. But now we're going to finish this first. But nice. Did that fix it? It's still any. But what if I do this? Now it's still any. No, there's something wrong with the... What is this yelling about now? Message? What the hell? Message? It's missing in that, but it extends it. I don't like that. Okay, let's just do any. I'm not sure why. But yeah, this actually, like, user reducer dev tools shouldn't really care about yeah, this didn't actually fix it. So it is our language server. Ah, so annoying. We need the typing. Give me my typing. Now it's suddenly there. That's so weird. Okay. So do we get our typing here now? No, we don't. God damn it. Yeah, state is suddenly any again. Now it's suddenly any again. It is TS server, but I haven't looked into how it actually works. I have a colleague who has been working on it, and I've asked to do a session to understand how it actually works. Yeah, there is, so running TS server isn't just, it won't work like VS Code. There's another level of abstraction. And also we are not running the editor. Like there's latency. That's also a problem. But we're definitely doing something wrong. So that's like high on my priority list, is to understand and help with the LSP, because it's so fundamental. Like in VS, when you open in VS Code, this works just fine. I mean, we should do that to fix the final typing here. Yeah, and we don't have to do this. That shouldn't be necessary. Okay, let's just open in VS Code and see what happens. Oop. Yeah, we'll update later. Yep. Let's see. Web. So this is actually really cool. Like, I just clicked a button and now I have all the things open in VS Code, and even my pending changes are here. Do I get it here? Or does it actually have the same? Wait! It has the same issue. Wow. Oh! That's interesting. Okay, so there's an actual problem here. Okay. Because it does not have a type annotation and is referenced directly or indirectly in its own initializer. Fascinating. Is it the register hook thing that's causing this? Oh, my bad. It's the freaking register hook thing that's causing this. Ah. Yeah, I think like Microsoft are, even though they open source and share a lot of their technology, VS Code has a lot of closed stuff. And they make sure that they have a benefit, I think. And they understand their own technology best, of course. But they don't really help out that much. Like people are like reverse engineering a lot of the stuff, and yeah, it's not easy to make it work as well as VS Code. But this is interesting. It's actually my mistake, and I've been in this situation before. Okay, so if I just do, wow, now it's suddenly worked again. What the hell? Okay, so this what the fuck? What's happening here? How do I make it any again? Now it suddenly works. Okay, so we definitely have the same issue here though. So I wonder why. Is it... Okay, let's just restart. Here we can at least restart. I think we can actually restart the TS server in the project editor as well. But let's see. No. It's so weird. Maybe it's just a bug. I don't know. Wait, no, they didn't. No. Okay, let me try now to see if I can get yeah, now so now I get the name. Everything works. Now it's suddenly stopped working. Now it's any. So it's when I save the file, suddenly it stops working. Okay, but now let's try removing. It might be register hook causing this. Because it definitely stops being a problem. Because I have seen issues with this before. Okay, but that one's working now, and then we have the final thing, which is switching branch, which is ready. Yeah, so now we can at least, so here you see these are all possible states. On ready, we have only defined the following actions, and the only state you can move into from this transition is ready, which is pretty cool. And here we only use the action payload. We should really try to reproduce the problem though. Okay, so let's bring back register hook. See if we can reproduce. How did I just changed something, didn't I? And then suddenly it just... Yeah, I saved. Wasn't that the issue? What the fuck? Yeah, now it's in there. Okay, so we're going to try something else. I'm going to try to be explicit about the provider props there. And that also seems to fix it. Okay. So I think the problem is, like, there is a loop here. Because what we're doing is that we're doing create hooks provider. But this is weird. Like, everything is in the same file here. Okay, but let's see if that helps this one. So remove provider props. Yeah, now it's any. And if I put it back, it works. That's very interesting. At least we have the code internally here, so we can look at it. Is it because we don't have... Can we rather do... Does that actually change anything? We do this. And then we say as any. I typically do this in libraries. Like, you give explicit return type and then let's see. No, it doesn't help. Yeah. Why does it happen though? Hook T extends object. I think this is like the parameters. Yeah, I wonder. Why does it call like a loop? Loop-de-loop. Damn it. But yeah, maybe we can talk about this. Like, we were pretty much done here. One more thing we need to do is... Yeah, so this shouldn't return project. When we do use project here, we can also use register hook, because this is also going to be shared, and we can actually give it the feature like this. And what we get here now is the project feature. But oh yeah, we can do this. Yeah, because it only returns the state. So what we do now is we throw new error, invalid use of use project. So what we did now, we just say, or this doesn't really matter, does it? No, we can just create a hook for this. Yeah, sorry. This doesn't matter because we're just sorry. It should just look like this. But what we could do is like we could say if we just want to expose the dispatcher, for example, use project dispatcher, we could derive a hook and just grab the dispatcher, and then that dispatcher would actually get its own context provider. And if the state of the project updates, the context provider providing the dispatcher would not cause reconciliation. So again, it's just for optimization, and I don't really like that, but yeah. Yeah, I need to think about this. The good thing is that we can play around with this without having a high impact on the code base, which is great. Invalid use of use project hook. But let's, until Oscar wakes up, let's talk about oh, did I get some messages? Oh, yeah. Let's talk about what's it called? Where do I see the Ecam live? Oh well, where is the? Oh, there we go. Yeah. Anyways, let's talk about this hooks provider. Maybe I haven't reflected on it for a while. I just needed it to work. The goal is we want a utility that allows us to define a single provider that can register multiple hooks which are unrelated to each other. So like you don't want one hook changing to cause reconciliation on the consumption of a different hook. But at the end of the day, the reason we even do this is because, well, you could say, why don't create a utility to create a provider? And then you just keep creating providers, but then you have to insert all those providers. Yeah, but maybe that's better. I've seen there are like tools where that compose providers. Maybe that's actually better. Well, no, because there's a different aspect of this, which is the whole problem. It's this provider props. So when you have a shared hook, or you expose a hook through a provider, the thing is that you can't pass properties into the hook, right? Because what if you pass a set of properties in one point of consumption, and then you pass in different properties in a different point of consumption, and it's literally the same hook? Like, it would cause havoc. So what you do instead is that you say that these hooks can't take any arguments by themselves, but you rather give the props to the provider because that is passed into the hook. Yeah, I've heard about use context concepts, but is it actually working? I heard it was like super experimental. And it wasn't like blessed by React, but I didn't look at it. Yeah, sorry. Let me bring it up here. React content is often used to avoid properly, however, it's not around performance area with blah blah blah. It's a proposed and later proposed speculative mode. Yeah, so that's why I'm like, I just don't like that it's not like official React, and it's like using internals of React, I believe. So if React changes, this might not even work at some point, because that's what I don't know, and I feel worried about. Um, and like use reducer cheat mode, it just makes me really, yeah. But it's a really cool thing. Like it's needed. Like React needs to solve this because it is a problem. Um, but another thing that's not ideal here is that when we register these hooks, they are actually, so when the provider here is mounted, it actually runs all these hooks. So if these hooks does some initial data fetching or anything like that, they will actually initiate that data fetching, which is not necessarily what you want. Um, maybe you want like a certain hook um, and its provider to be like in a more nested place in the, yeah. Oh, this is so, I'm this is so annoying. But I really want, it would be nice to have an API where you kind of just say, oh, okay, the use reducer cheat mode is just creating the reducer in the render function. Okay, so it's not as bad as it sounds. uh, yeah, because I played around with this idea. What if you just created the hook and then the first consumption of the hook would be responsible. Um, so what you would basically do, you would rather create a global context for all these hooks. So, but then again, you can't pass them arguments. That's the thing. Like, so it's not really a traditional hook in that sense. Um, yeah, this is really annoying. The typing issue here. I wonder why it happens though. We're just passing in. Is it because of this derive thingy? What if I remove that? Let's yeah, let's just play around with this and see what like happens. No. Maybe we shouldn't even use a context. Uh, maybe there would be a, yeah. I have a feeling there's a better way to do this. What if I remove this? Does that have an effect? No. It's really interesting. Why does it break? Yeah, maybe it's the return type. Oh. Oh wait. Yeah. I think we have the same issue. Like, it should be. Oh, sorry. Maybe we should just make the return type. We should probably call it R. Like we're saying the return type is any. Yeah, wait a minute. Let's change this. So T and R. So we are going to say so H extends hook T, T extends object. Wait a minute, how do we do this? Return type H. Oh, wait a minute. I think, yeah, maybe it's because we actually state that the return type is NA. Oh, wait a minute. What the hell happened there? What if we just make that generic? But then this breaks. Yeah, HR. Yeah, because here we're saying that it's HR. And why are we saying HR? Oh yeah, because it's the yeah, I'm doing something iffy here. Because we're not actually yeah, I think that's the issue here. Because we're saying we're saying hook T here. We're not saying wait a minute. I think this should be H. Yeah, because we're extending, so this shouldn't matter. But I don't know if that actually fixes it. I don't think it does. Oh, it did. Seriously? Did it fix it? Well, it's the first time we don't have the explicit typing and it gives the correct thing. So the thing is I had an explicit hook T here, which means that the return type should be any. But I'm grabbing the parameter, so it shouldn't matter. No, I have a feeling it's going to break again. What if I try to use any of the... Yeah, like you see here now. Yeah, it's broken again. Okay. Yeah, I think you're right about the return type though. Register hook extends hook any. But we are extending it, so... Oh, but it could be... Yeah, but I removed this one. Let's just remove this one to make it simpler. Try to understand what's happening. But it's so funny that it works when I put this in there. Wait a minute. Maybe we should rather do... I think we can change equals... never. I think we can change this. So we rather say yeah. But again, I don't think it matters. Yeah. It's just because it doesn't necessarily have any props. And to allow you to properly, like now we're stating that there has to be one argument, even though it's never. But it doesn't necessarily need to have a prop. Is it when a hook has no? Yeah, has not, would that not be optional props? Oh yeah, but then yeah, because then yeah, maybe. Yeah, well, if we make it optional, then it might be undefined. Yeah. Um. Like when the hook does have require, it be optional when you don't actually want it to be. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. But I remember this typing requiring itself. I had a lot of issues with that in Overmind. And it's incredibly difficult to understand why it happens. But I do think you're right that we're just not like, so one thing that could also maybe fix this, like we still have the NA now, right? No, of course we don't. Let me try to reproduce it. So there we go. That's so weird. It's so freaking weird. Yeah, now it's NA. Wait, now it's back. For fudge sake. Let's open it in VS Code again, because I don't want that confusion with me thinking it's the language, our language server. Come on, load. Register hook feature. There we go. There's broken. What was I going to do? Yeah, so we could also try to actually state what the return type should be here. So we do have, we could say type of return type, sorry, return type of reducer. So I have a feeling that's also going to fix it. Because I think you're right. It's not the arguments. It's the return type that's causing this. Oh, this is interesting. Why is this failing? No. Oh, so. But again, like, why the hell did it stop? It's actually a return type of return type, because it's like we had this factory. No. So, huh? What the hell is happening here? Oh, of course. Sorry. This doesn't work, of course. We have to be explicit. So this should be state. Let's just bring it. Oh, do we have state? Yeah, and then dispatch action. Okay, so that's also I think that is really the fix, but it should not be necessary to do that. But for some reason with the inference, maybe, yeah, it just goes in a loop or something. Let's close this and see. How does this act up now? State. Does this even give the... Yeah, now it even gives the... Okay. Yeah, so that's interesting. So we have that callback. Let's just bring back everything the way it was. Yeah. Okay, so for some reason it needs an explicit return type. We're back to explicit return types. That's funny. Yeah, because I don't want you to have to do this. I think it's this thing. Why do we do this? Why do we say return? Oh yeah, because we're kind of removing the parameters. Maybe that's the thing that's causing it. What if we just do... What if we just did this? Does that do anything? Like, it will be a problem, but I wonder if it fixes the issue. No, yeah, so what the hell inside this typing is causing this issue? Is it this thing? That was something I added later. Maybe it's that thing. No. Okay, let's just remove as much as possible there. Let's remove this and this. And then let's try reintroduce the problem instead. And then H. So there's nothing special about this typing. Does it still break? It still breaks. That's incredibly fascinating. It's almost the fact that we just have a callback. It just utterly fails. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Could it be that we should rather type this as but if we do that, yeah. Well, as long as you extend, it shouldn't be an issue. But anyways, like if we do so register hook, yeah, that's the thing. Maybe that's the core of it. Like we are returning we are like returning the thing we pass. But we're not really doing that. Let's just say any here. Oh, interesting. That's still any. Well, again, we should do this in VS Code because damn it, I have to wake up Oscar. He's been sleeping too long. A good thing we can break it easily here. So it's even just, it seems to be just extending. Just is it because it's object? That couldn't be it. Oh. It doesn't? Oh, I thought that would be... Huh, interesting. No, it breaks. Okay, but what if I just do this now? let's remove the consumer and all that stuff. Because that's also something I added later. I added the hooks consumer later. Oh, it's still breaking. That's so funny. What the hell? If I do... This is seriously the most interesting... Oh, that... No, wait. Why did that suddenly... Oh. What the hell? Why is this? Ah, that's interesting. But that seemed to fix it, right? When I rather did explicit, so if I do... So what if I did a check here? So what would happen if I did... I'm just going to... Or can I... Like, what would happen if I don't have this? What does it expect as an argument then? Oh, I didn't know that. They fixed that. Okay, cool. So I can actually... Okay, interesting. So what if we don't do this register and all that stuff? What if we just do register hook and then we give it return type RR. No, wait a minute. It returns this. Origin hook. Oh yeah, this is just... It doesn't matter. This is just stuff. Anyways, okay, so what if I do that? Feature. No, it broke again. What the fuck? I have to go. But this is seriously weird. This is so weird. Yeah, so this is the weird thing. What if I do this? Well, that even breaks. What the fuck? There's something extremely weird about this. Yeah, this works. That's so interesting. So this actually works. What if I do, like, this is what I really want. I want register hook to take a hook that returns something and then it returns the function that returns the thing. But that does not work. Wait, now it worked. No, it doesn't work. Okay, I'm just wondering if it's like completely broken here. Any any. Oh yeah, it didn't actually work. It's just completely broken. Yeah, so even if I do any here, oh, then it's consistent. Okay. But as soon as maybe it is the props. So if I do props any, then it breaks. So if I just give it props, wait a minute. Oh yeah, I think it's the initial state here now. The initial state fails. But now, no, I have no idea. It's so weird. Anyways, I have to go. We got stuck, but we got through the refactor. That one's nice. And we identified the actual problem with the typing. Well, not the actual problem, but where the problem is, like the location of the problem. And I'll mess around with this some more tomorrow, I hope, and reflect on just having this API. It's not explicit enough. Like people who doesn't know what create hooks provider is has no understanding of, like, just looking at the code, what the hell is register hook? Doesn't make any sense. I think it needs to be, maybe it could be at the place of consumption as well. So you wouldn't pre-register a hook to be well, yeah, that's the problem. You can't dynamically load hooks either. That's the biggest problem. So you have to know beforehand if it's going to be shared, because it needs to be mounted somewhere, which is inside the provider. Yeah, I don't know. I have to think about this. Anyways, thanks for staying, helping out, Sigurd. I'll definitely let you know if I can figure this out. But it's crazy stuff. Bye for now. We'll talk later.